The Cowboys offense bounced back on Wednesday, which featured Jaydon Blue. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also check out Landon on TikTok. He runs our Locked On Cowboys account over there. Make sure you guys are following us on all platforms. And on today's show, we're going to talk about all of the notes from Cowboys training camp on Wednesday, which Landon was at. We'll talk about the red zone offense. We're going to talk about the offensive line. But let's start with the offense as a whole, Landon, because this was one of their best practices yet. And Jaydon Blue worked with the first team, which was notable.
Yeah, it was. We've been kind of waiting for him to show up and get some snaps with the first team. And yeah, today was it was a non-batted practice, but it was mostly kind of a red zone practice. And it seemed like we get to see a little bit of how they plan on attacking the red zone, which, famously last year was a real problem for the Cowboys. They had lots of opportunities in the red zone that just kind of fell short and ultimately ended in Brandon Aubrey field goals, which, was good for his Pro Bowl allotment, but not necessarily good for the offense overall. So we got an opportunity on Wednesday to see kind of how they plan on attacking the red zone. They used a lot of different running backs, a lot of different guys touched the ball, including Jaydon Blue got several different opportunities and broke a big run at one point. But we saw the tight ends getting chances but in the flats, we saw wide receivers attacking the back ends of the corner. We saw a fade route to CeeDee Lamb and then followed up immediately with a 2-point conversion to George Pickens, both in the back left corner of the end zone. So we got to see a different, and then obviously it's some run game stuff too as well, like not just throwing the football, but like I mentioned, Jaydon Blue as a runner, Miles Sanders specifically as a runner, and then eventually we saw a little bit more of Javonte Williams breaking a run. So the offense was kind of doing a whole bunch of different stuff, and it was really all kind of working pretty well early on.
I know it's hard to judge because Wednesday they didn't have pads on. It was only shells. But between Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, who have you been more impressed by at practice?
I mean, honestly, they both looked pretty good. I mean, it's hard to again, it's without pads, it's tough, but for what they look like they're supposed to be doing, I think Williams to me at times early on looked like he had some balance issues, maybe just kind of staying up. And maybe part of it is just getting used to playing without running full speed and trying to stay off the ground, which is what the coaches are constantly yelling at you. But I think, that seems to have evened out. And I think, there was talk early on that Miles Sanders was kind of ahead of the pack a little bit. But I think since we've seen pads come on, we've seen Williams kind of breaking some tackles. He gets through the line of scrimmage a little bit better, it feels like. It's tough to say. Honestly, none of them have looked terrible. It's not like, the one thing we worried about with Blue specifically was him putting the ball on the ground, because that was a real big problem in Texas.
Oh man, I'm knocking on every piece of wood that I have right here.
I haven't even said it yet. We're pre-knocking. And yeah, he hasn't put it on the ground at all from what I've seen. And let me be clear, this defense is fully trying to constantly punch the ball out. Even when guys are walking back to the huddle, you see McQuamu will just walk by and punch the ball as the guys are walking on the sideline. That. So yeah, I mean, they're trying, and these guys are holding on to it, which is a pretty good sign.
We did get a quote from Brian Schottenheimer on Jaydon Blue, which I think is at least worth reading. He said, I think in the spring he picked it up slower than we had hoped, but not now. He's got it. He's figuring it out. He's one of those guys that doesn't say much, but there's a big time competitive fire in there. He wants to be great. He wants to be elite. He knows that he's talented. I think he's realizing, okay, I'm really talented. I'm really good, but I'm in the NFL now. And most of these guys are really, really good. Yeah. So I have to do the things off the field, preparing mentally in the classroom, studying a little bit extra in the installs for the next day, taking care of my body. It's been fun to see.
I'll just say this, like, I mean, again, all we can go by is our observations, right? When I was out on the field just a little bit early before practice, and he was one of the first guys that I saw out there, like working on one of the blocking sleds, getting some pass pro reps in, just kind of hitting the sled and putting some pretty good force on it for a guy, who's under 200 pounds.
Mhm.
So, and then after practice, he was one of the guys who was standing around and taking some questions from a couple different, I don't want to step on any interviewers' toes that may be releasing stories on Jaydon Blue, but he was, taking the time.
Oh, it's out. Nick Harris did a good job.
Okay, good. Yeah, Nick did a great job. So the couple different guys that kind of came out, that he waited for and had conversations with and was diligent and I kind of just listened in and he seemed very committed and dedicated. So and excited, excited about the opportunity and he didn't, sometimes you hear these guys and they seem kind of just blasé or no, but there was a level of pep in his conversation about he was excited for his opportunity. So and I think he took full advantage of what we've seen so far in training camp, which kind of lines up with what Schottenheimer said as well.
And I don't want to talk about this too much, but this is what you heard in that first part of the statement from Schottenheimer is probably a little bit of what our guy Glenn Stretch Smith heard, where hey, this is not coming along as fast as we had hoped. But to Jaydon Blue's credit, he's putting in the work. And it sounds like it was actually a couple of days ago, Brian Schottenheimer was talking about they've been really appreciative of his professionalism since he's got the camp. So it's all encouraging to see him, again, this is what we said at the time. He's 21. Like sometimes it takes these guys to get to camp to realize, okay, I can't just go out there and be the best guy in the field. And now you're seeing him put in the hard work, and the Cowboys are rewarding him with more snaps with the first team.
And sometimes it's about your coach's tolerance. Maybe at Texas, they tolerated that a lot more, and they're not tolerating it here, and that's lit a fire under him. He's
great.
He's growing young man, so he's going to learn these lessons on the fly like the rest of us. Good news is he's got great reactions and agility, and he can change direction very quickly. So it looks like that's what he's done on the course of his studies and kind of, because that's really been the thing. It's not like a work ethic thing. It's about understanding what to do when you get put out there and all the variations that can happen when the defenses changes. So it takes a lot of study. It sounds like he's caught all the way up.
We know that a lot of fantasy football people listen to this podcast because there's a lot going on with Dallas. We know this is going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. Even with Jaydon Blue getting first team reps, I think you and I are both in agreement here that this is still going to be a very heavy running back by committee approach. And I don't think anything we saw on Wednesday is going to change that.
You're not going to get me to talk about fantasy football, Marcus. But yes, I do agree that I think that they are very serious, just based on what we've seen so far. They are very serious about getting a lot of different people the football from the backfield, right? We've seen Turpin get the ball, not just like as a couple times. Like I saw a section of practice where he got the ball 4 times. They were working on the package where he was a running back. That Lipke's getting the ball. We talked about Williams. We talked about Sanders. We talked about Blue. Maffa is getting his opportunities as well. I don't know that all these guys are going to make the team or all going to get carries in the regular season, but I do think that it's not unreasonable to think that upwards of 4 and 5 people will carry the ball in any given game that the Cowboys play this year, because I think that's how they want to run the football.
All right, let's talk about the offensive line, because Wednesday was our first chance at looking at Nate Thomas, who the Cowboys are expecting to be their left tackle going into week 1. Maybe it's Tyler Guyton, who knows? We'll talk about how he looked next. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're out sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one is a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or even off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I actually played on Wednesday. Again, it was about hole 7. I was tired. Took my 5-Hour Energy, powered through, had a great last couple holes. It was fantastic. Great day out on the golf course. And golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. And the grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without having to chase down the bev cart. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your first order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. And this code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are breaking down the Cowboys training camp practice from Wednesday, which Landon was on the sidelines for. Let's talk about the offensive line because everybody was watching Nathan Thomas, the Cowboys' 7th round pick from last year, filling in for Tyler Guyton. What did you see?
First off, I just want to say he also spoke after practice for a little while. Sounds like a very thoughtful young man, very, again, very appreciative, very well thought of his answers. A guy who sounds very committed to what he's doing and understands the opportunities he's been given. Made it clear that this is not a pressure because he needed to prepare to play no matter what was happening, and even if Guyton didn't get hurt. So this isn't gonna. He didn't feel like the opportunity was too big for him, and I think his play has reflected that. I mean, it's so far, it's been a couple days of practice. I've gone back and watched my previous videos from other days to kind of focus on him a little bit more, and then seeing him again today. I know it wasn't in pads. It was there, but you could still get a sense, especially for a guy his size, right? He's a big guy, and he's, there's been concerns about where his foot quickness is. You can get a sense of at least, does he have the kind of requisite athleticism to get out there and meet guys? And I watched him go against Sam Williams. I watched him go against Ezuraku. And I think I watched him go against Nealon. And I think that's a pretty good sampling of NFL defensive end, athleticism. He had no problems getting his kick out there and getting into them, controlled them a couple different times. He lost some battles that like Guyton will, like all, hopefully a whole offensive tackles will against our guys. But he more than looked comfortable. He acquitted himself well. He was a winner on the majority of the snaps I saw. And he looks like a guy who could be an asset, maybe more than a detriment while he's filling in for Guyton.
One of the things that you want to see is that the moment just isn't too big for them, right? The Cowboys signed a very highly recruited tackle a few years ago. I don't want to name names, but you probably can figure it out, from Clemson. This was a 5-star recruit that they signed, and they put him into practice, and it was pretty noticeable right away that it's too big for him, right?
No.
It doesn't sound like that's the case for Nathan Thomas right now.
No, and I think it's interesting because he kind of got forgotten last year, and which is, not surprising. I mean, by the Cowboys fandom, not by the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, that's because he went on injured reserve with some kind of mystery injury that we never really heard about.
Exactly, right. And I think what we're probably figuring out is that he got Cowboy stashiitis, and they really, really liked what they saw from him early on. And I do. Retweeted himself from right after the Cowboys drafted him, and talked about how at that year he had grown so immeasurably in the draft process not only as a player but as a man because of some adversity that he had faced, that it was really surprising. And now smash cut to this guy who was playing tackle for the University of Louisiana is going to potentially be the starting left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys when they face their Super Bowl rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, in Week 1. I mean,
the opening kickoff of the game of the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, so he's not taking any bigger leaps than that. So yeah, it's a real big question on whether or not he's ready to kind of step up and take that. And I think it sounds like, just based on his tone, that he is. Before we get out of the segment, I do want to add 2 other things about the tackle. So I just want to throw that out there. I think part of the reason they wanted to do Nate Thomas as the kind of initial guy to try the left tackle, and I mentioned this before, but I kind of want to reiterate it because we saw some more of it today, is I think they have a role for Austin Richards to get on the field as a 6th offensive lineman. I think that they plan on using that as a weapon the same way the Lions have at certain points.
The Bills do the same thing. The Bills have the highest 6 offensive lineman rate in the league. So it's becoming more of a trend.
Yeah, and I think, as you want to become a more physical football team, it just helps you create more gaps. It helps you become a more physical team. It makes you kind of hopefully create some mismatches. And when you have good offensive linemen, and a lot of them, you want to get them on the field. Get your best players on the field. Find a way to do it. The other thing I'll mention, and this is conjecture, so let me be clear here. If anybody listened to Brian Schottenheimer today, and I spoke a couple other writers about this, I don't want anybody else to kind of throw anybody the bus because it's my theory. It sure sounded to me that Brian Schottenheimer was way more optimistic than we even thought he was about Tyler Guyton's return.
I heard the same tone. More like they feel pretty confident he's going to be back within a month.
And here's my wild speculation, right? I wonder if maybe he really wasn't even that injured, period, and that this was a initial field. First of all, the odds that Dr. Andrews is going to not be right about his ACL. Dr. Cooper is going to not be right about his ACL evaluation on the field. Like it's astronomically low. Like it's so crazy. Like those things have like something like a 90% hit rate on those evaluations. So I wonder if maybe it's maybe a much less severe situation, and they're going to just kind of feel it out a little bit. So let's cross our fingers. But I mean, that's all based just on.
As I said, no reporting. Do not
no reporting at all. But at the same time, when was the last time you heard a coach like kind of be on the optimistic side of like, well, maybe it's not that so severe? Like I never heard that tone.
Well, I will say, and this is something that Bill Parcells used to do with these guys a lot. When he would have offensive linemen, he always wanted them to be tough and kind of fight their way through injuries, because you're going to be playing with injuries all year long. Like that's just the nature of the offensive line. So forcing these guys to get back on the field maybe sooner than they're 100%. I don't know if that's a smart strategy, but it's not uncommon in the NFL because they want their offensive line to figure out a way to be effective even when you're less than 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if Schotty's trying to do a little bit of that as well. Like, hey, we're going to have to white knuckle this a little bit and play through it because we need you.
I'm just saying, I'd love to hear some more specifics about what the actual injury is.
Yeah.
I
did hear it's a bone fracture and a knee sprain, but we never really heard what the degree of the knee sprain is. Maybe it's like a grade 1 MCL thing where that's like a 1 or 2 week injury. Who knows?
So who knows? That's all speculation. Certainly not any kind of reporting.
Do not aggregate this. Last thing on the offensive line before we haven't talked about Tyler Booker really that much since the pads have come on.
Yeah.
Again, not a padded practice on Wednesday, but what did you see from him on the field?
I think that I'll just kind of sum it up for everything since pads have come on, right? I think he responded really well to the situation with Rob Johnson, and that he
Rob Jones. I got you.
Rob Jones. Man, unbelievable. I think he bounced back from that really well, and he played really well with pads on, and he continued to play well today. I saw him get out on the hoof and kind of eliminate a guy in the second level. But and the run game specifically, when they were running inside, was working. Like they were caving guys down. They were getting opportunities for guys like Sanders. There was one really great run up the middle where Sanders was able to leap over a body and kind of just stroll into the end zone because the offensive line had just destroyed everything, right? So, and he's a huge part of that. And I think the interplay, I really want to kind of do a deep dive, especially when they get the pads back on, to see the interplay of the 3 interior guys, because I really feel like you're feeling it when you're watching the snaps, but you're not, even if you're not seeing it directly, right? It's just like there's space and the running back's running and you're like, yeah, clearly that was created by somebody.
All right, let's talk about some more notes that we have from Cowboys camp. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or you're planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. My family has been using Monarch Money for about 9 months now, and it's unbelievable how much money they've saved us. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Landon, let's empty your notebook. What do you have from Cowboys camp?
Well, first things first, we got to talk about what happened at camp today, which was that the whole practice got cut short because of physicality that was turning into fights. Basically, I think there was 3 different periods where camp had to be stopped and guys had to be separated, and then finally at the third instance of it, they were probably, I don't know, halfway through the second team doing a move the ball period that was kind of near the end zone. Coach Schottenheimer stopped the whole practice. There was a fight. I think it was started by Toa, it seemed to be just like, by the way, who was playing with the ones today a little bit and looked really good at certain points. And the third fight basically started. All the groups get converged. Schottenheimer gets them all together and dog curses them. I mean, I can't repeat obviously the words that I heard, and you couldn't quite hear everything that they were saying, but I got the gist of what he was saying.
I saw one video where I could very clearly hear what he was saying, and it was not safe for work.
Not safe for work. For our work, it's clearly their job. So yeah, they basically lined them up on the end zone, like on the sideline, actually, like they were a high school football team, and made them, do gassers or whatever. It was basically a jog. Yeah. And, CeeDee Lamb spoke after practice, and he actually talked about the whole situation. And he brought up the fact that, the Cowboys haven't had problems with talent these last few years, though obviously injury has been a part of some of this. It's about discipline, and it's about this kind of thing. And he's happy that like, at the very least, like, Schottenheimer's doing something. He's making it clear that this is not acceptable. And it may not feel like a lot, like, they're not sprinting, and it may not be physically grueling, but for younger guys who need opportunities, they lost 15 snaps of opportunities today that they didn't get as people were fighting. So for the younger guys who, you kind of have to worry about, it was important, and they lost opportunity today. So I mean, look, we'll see if it actually translates to wins or to change. But Schottenheimer's clearly doing things differently, and I think this is another example of at least making efforts and trying to change the things that have kind of caused problems, for seemingly years and years and years with the Cowboys. I think we've seen 2 different coaches at least throw their hands up like, hey, we can't do anything about these penalties or whatever. So I don't know if the old ball coach way of doing things works or not, but we're going to try at least.
I have a friend who works in the national media. I'm not going to tell you their name, but I was talking to them on the phone last night, and they were saying, it seems like the Shotty's camp is a little too buddy. Cannot wait to send them the clip that we just saw of Shotty making these guys run, and not only just making the players run, which I think is interesting. He also is making the coaches run, because it's all of their faults if they can't get this, fighting stopped and the penalty stopped. So we'll see. I think Shotty's trying to walk the fine line of being a player coach, but also being disciplined. It's really hard to do. But we've seen guys like Pete Carroll's done it before and did a really good job, who Shotty coached under.
It's parental is what it feels like to me. I mean, it is, because it's like and I've seen it a couple of times. This is not the first time we've seen him get hot and mad. He's done it a couple of times. He's gotten after folks, and they've gotten after. This is not the first time they've pulled the guys in together to yell at them before. So, it does feel like he is managing to do both of like, hey, we're gonna hype you up. We love you guys. We're getting excited. But when it's time to get corrected, like you get corrected like a stern parent, and like probably like I imagine the same tone a thick-jawed Marty Schottenheimer would if he caught him smoking a cigarette in the closet or something like that. I that's what I'm imagining.
All right, give me your favorite play that you witnessed from Wednesday's practice.
Man, well, I mean, first of all, like to see the kind of the back-to-back touchdown from CeeDee Lamb, and then the 2-point conversion from Pickens really kind of just makes you salivate really, really heavily. I mentioned this play to you beforehand. It's really becoming one of my favorite plays in football. But we saw Lipke catch a pass in the flat for a touchdown, kind of in this red zone thing area, practice. And it's not just because Lipke caught the touchdown that it was my favorite. It's I love the play action fake to a running back that you end up throwing to the flat, and it's just it always creates a mismatch. If it's man coverage, you're usually getting a guy that's misguided by the run or is a step late to get out to the flat. If it's zone coverage, it's usually a little bit deeper, and so you're at least able to get the ball to a ball carrier who could easily break a tackle from a cornerback and get into the end zone. So I've been calling for plays like this a little bit more, and it's cool to see them kind of doing. That's the other tone of the thing I'll just throw out there, is that it felt like all the kind of play action stuff from the red zone was all going sideways this way. It was misdirection. They were trying to just create a lot more space for the wide receivers to work. That was encouraging, I think, for us to see.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Check us out on YouTube as well. Make sure you tune into Friday's show. We'll be breaking down the Thursday practice, which of course Landon will be at. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.